Welcome to the Lips and Language podcast. My name is Cola, where we talk about life, love, and language. Remember to subscribe, like, and share. Let's get into today's topic. A part of the journey in moving and trusting God is gratitude. Being grateful for the things that I have been given, being grateful for the things that don't happen, being grateful for the doors that do close because of the things we could have missed out on. So here's a list. And it's in no particular order. It's just written down of the things that I got. So anointing oil from Miss Val, a new laptop, revelation on my skincare business, revelation on my coworker, a deeper level with God, bringing me into a place of like intimacy. I got to see my best friend who came to Canada. And I got to like treat her with like cook for her and all the things that I wanted to do. Seeing my parents' true feelings. I finally did Thanksgiving with my whole family. This actually increased my faith and my confidence. And I got to like fix my trademark. Among other things that has happened since I even wrote this list. And so let's talk about the first thing, anointing oil. Ms. Val has sent me anointing oil for me to anoint over myself and over my things. She had sent it all the way from Florida. But it actually showed up to my house the day after, the Thursday, ironically. And had I left, I would have missed it. And I was like, interesting, how peculiar that it comes literally the day after I leave. But okay. The new laptop that I talked about, that was like in November sometime. A revelation on my business. So I don't want to get too much into it, but we had the skincare business, my sister and I, and there was a lot of things that were happening behind scenes that people just didn't see. And with this whole move, it was causing a lot of stress on her because in her mind, it was a little irresponsible that I was kind of just up and leaving the business. But in my mind, I was just like, I'm just going to do what God told me to do because God runs the business anyway. So he must know what I can't see or what's next, right? What I'm missing. And so we didn't know how to really move forward with the business. Now, the day after I stayed, the day after I remained, she had sent an email out to our customers and told them that the business was temporarily closed and that I was moving to California, and for that reason, the business was temporarily on pause. And the thing was, I actually had no clue about it. I had no clue that was happening. Like, we had never discussed that we were going to put the business on pause. We never discussed anything pertaining to it. So how I found out about it is because I got an email from our company and I said, oh, what's this? And I looked and I read it and I was hurt because it happened the moment that I wasn't in sight and there was no conversation. It was just like, yeah, this is what we're doing. And we actually still had product on the shelf at that time. Like, we still had product to sell. And I was like, well, why didn't you tell people to buy up the stuff? Like, why? Like, you didn't say nothing about, hey, guys, we have products. Like, you kind of said, we're closed and that's it. And for those of you who got the email, you would have seen it. And a lot of people were like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear and all this other stuff. And I'm like, shoot, I'm sorry too. Like, I didn't know that this was happening because, like, we didn't have a full in-depth conversation about the business. But, like, the idea that I had was that let me get where I'm getting to, let me get settled, and then I can take up back production. Like, we can put production on pause because I'm the one who makes everything, but not necessarily to close down the business. Anyways, it was this back and forth of like, she was like, I ain't done nothing wrong. Take it up with yourself. Basically, you left me and I had to deal with this. And for me, I was like really hurt over it. And I kind of just had to hold it, kind of just had to eat it, because, we don't often tell our business out there. So while people are just like, oh, that's so sad, and I'm like, man, if y'all only knew what was happening behind the scenes. And so the business went on pause for a bit, and like I was a bit like, I was a bit, like I said, hurt over it, because it wasn't like a decision that we had both made together. Sometimes as I'm saying things, I'm thinking about other things. That's why I kind of pause. Because fast forward to now, and the business is now closed. And this time it was a decision that I made. And it wasn't just me. It was that calls stopped coming in, sales stopped happening, the bills were still coming out, but I didn't have enough money to cover all the bills. Like, I didn't have enough money to pay for everything that was still coming out. And God had essentially told me to close down the business. And so now it's weird, because I'm like, she's on the other side of it. Like, on one hand, it was her trying to close it down, and on the next hand, it was me trying to close it down. And me it was like based off of, like I said, practicality. Like, sales weren't coming in, things were drying up. I couldn't afford all the bills, and God said to close it. He didn't say for how long, but he just said it needed to be closed for now. And me as obedient, I'm always going to be obedient. So I was like, cool. But now it's just like, but God said it this time. It wasn't me taking it up on myself. It was just like, and even then it was still really challenging for me to leave behind a business that we had started building for like the last 5-6 years. Though it didn't even hit its peak. But with me moving and things not being secure, with no funds coming in to actually run the business, there was nothing else we could do. It's like it dried up itself. So I never actually saw the business closing throughout this whole move. Like, that was never a part of the plan. Now, I knew that I couldn't legally operate it in the States without registering it, without all this other stuff. So that's like, okay, cool. But I was really trying to figure out, okay, God, but we have this business. Like, what are we doing with it? And losing my business was really hard. Closing it down was really hard. I didn't explain anything to anybody. I kind of just like, it's closed for now, and that's it. Like, some people who knew I was moving understood it. Other people who, they're like, what's happening? Why? I need this. And like, it hurts my heart when I hear people like, this is the best product that worked for us. And I love it too. But I will always be obedient to what I feel like God is leading me to do. Number one. And number two, it just wasn't feasible at the time. I wasn't in a place where I could carry the business. My sister wasn't in a place where she's like, I don't know what the hell's going on, because you're trying to leave and trying to leave me with it. Like, there's just so many things happening that I'm like, I feel like we needed to breathe, figure it out, and then come back, because they weren't gelling in the way that it needed to work. And the goal was to be successful. The goal wasn't to drag the business and have the business drag us down at the same time. There was things that needed to happen that wasn't happening. There was departments that need to be in place that wasn't in place, right? And for the longest time, they always say, fake it till you make it. No, plan, and then execute the plan. Because people thought we must be having so much like success because we're in malls, we're on TV, and people must be buying up everything. And like, sometimes products are sitting on the shelf for like weeks, and I'm like, y'all love it, right? So like, why is it sitting on the shelf? And people are like, I want them to tell their friends, and like, we're in this market and that market, and we tried different social media outlets, we tried so many different marketing techniques, and nothing was working. And now with God kind of just saying to close it, I'm like, well, if God's not in it, there's nowhere I can go with it. And so that's, for anybody who ever wondered, that's what happened with the business. Is this shift took on a real life of itself that I could have never even thought was going to happen. Because everything, like, we still have labels, so much labels. Like, we still had so much containers. We still had so much product sitting on the shelf, and nobody talks to you about a failed business. Nobody talks to you about closing things down and what that looks like, and emotionally what that feels like. The grief of the ideas and the hopes that you had, the hopes that it would bring you out of poverty, it would bring you to a higher level. Like, from when my son had passed away, I had been working to build a better life. I had been working to make something of myself. I had been working to get past the depression, the anxiety. I had been working to be something, to not be who my family thought I was, but like the crazy wild one, but to be something successful and to actually like stand on my own 2 feet, because I had to move back home after my son passed. Like, I couldn't afford my apartment. I had to come back. And I had been building to do something greater and do something better. And it was always like, as long as you keep moving forward, this thing's going to work, this thing's going to break, this thing's going to, you know what I mean? Like, all the success and the dreams that I got and people got about the business and the prophecies over it, like, it didn't make sense that it was drying up. It really didn't. And it was really like a lesson. But I knew that, again, if God is in it, I can't be hurt over it. I really have to just trust whatever God's doing. I still didn't even know when I was leaving. I still just kept praying for these borders. I still just kept praying that things were going to change and that I would see something brand new. And I was doing prayers for this, prayers for that, prayers for husband. Like, there's so many things happening that I was like, let me just stay at this place and focus. And so around December, I had started working more seriously on my coaching program, or my business, my mentorship program, Lips and Language, because he had closed down the skincare. And at the time, I was like, God, which one do I do? Do I focus on skincare or focus on the mentorship program? And he was like, focus on the mentorship program. I had got myself a mentor at the time. And I was like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is what we're gonna focus on. And so I started shifting to focus on building this mentorship program, how to get clients and how to market and all these other things. And God had told me to do like a podcast way back when. But again, I was like, do I do a podcast for myself or for the skincare? All these things. And so now I'm in a space where I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this podcast. I'm going to build this company. I'm going to build this mentorship program, and we're going to see where this takes us. We're going to see what God does with it, because I'm tired of not having enough for my bills. I'm tired of not being able to stand on my own. I'm tired of, I know he's moving me, but I would like to have funds when I leave, like all these other things. And I started really focusing on it. And so the point of just being grateful for the things that he was doing. And another thing that I had on the list was like Thanksgiving with my whole family. So I had talked about previously about grief and family and childhood trauma, and how whenever I talked about the molestation from my aunt's boyfriend, my own family would always meet me with like, that's not true, you're a whore, you're a liar, and name calling. And so I had gotten a boldness one year to no longer show up to Thanksgiving, Christmas, any type of celebration. Like, I was not there. You were not seeing me. I was not putting myself in that situation. I needed some time to not be around them and to heal. And what was happening, without me even really knowing it, is over the last few years, I had gotten to a place where I had felt comfortable enough to go back. And so this year, Thanksgiving, I was just like, well, I don't know if, since I'm still in Canada, I'm like, I don't know if this is going to be my last Thanksgiving here in Canada with them. I'm like, so let me just go. And that was a huge deal, because it wasn't as, I didn't have as much anxiety about going. I didn't have as much fear with going. And while I was there, it was nothing like what I had anticipated. Like, it was cool. I didn't have no issues. And I was like, okay, I can do this. I have healed to a degree where I can bring myself back around family. And they weren't saying nothing. They weren't looking at me weird. And nothing was in my head. Like, I wasn't overthinking it. I just went, I enjoyed Thanksgiving, and we left. And so there were some really crucial things that God had been doing in my life, and he could only do it since I stayed, because my perspective shifted, because I knew I could leave at any time, because I knew that God was moving me, because I knew all these things. I looked at things differently. I analyzed them differently, and I got closer to him. I'm like, okay, what you saying here? What you saying there? And now I was in a state of consistent prayer. Like, it's not like I didn't pray before, but like, and now I was praying every night at 12 a.m. with another person. And God said, where two or more dwell, there I'll be in the midst of them. And so now me and this other person, we're interceding on each other's behalf. And it just became this really beautiful moment of like sacrificing and giving God everything and showing up and saying, God, like, we don't know what the season is, but we trust you and believe you. And then he was answering different things at different times. And at the same time, because I still had not gone back to my church, but at the same time, he was drawing me more towards the church in Florida. And around November, I had known that they needed, like, they wanted a website and some other things. And so now that I had a computer, I had gotten a conversation with Miss Val, and I'm like, hey, like, I know you guys need these things. Like, since I'm here, like, I can start it for you. And so I got a contract with them. Well, not a real contract, but like, I got the job essentially to build them out a website and a logo. And I sat there building it out for them. And when I wasn't building it out for them, I was working on my mentorship program. And so now my mind is shifted. Now we're shifting from, okay, skincare to, okay, I'm doing this. I'm doing graphic design. I'm doing website design. I'm making logos. I'm doing these other things. And I'm putting my brand together of who I am personally. And it worked out really well for me, because I had built many websites before, but this is the first time I built and got paid for a website. I had built websites before, and people just like, I'm like, okay, pay me what you can, and they just paid nothing. But this was like really like, oh, cool, I actually got paid for a website. And so even in the conversation of God, how you sustain me because I'm not at work, he was bringing, in the midst of what God should I do, he was bringing me into it. And I started seeing how this church in Florida needed kind of like the things that I do, the skills that God has already given me, the skills to work a Zoom, the skills to work YouTube, the skills to set up little things. And so little by little, I was doing more for this Florida church. And I didn't even realize as it was happening, but I shifted from one place to the other. And so now I'm here and I'm building, I'm working, unofficially, but also officially in some ways. Like I'm volunteering in certain aspects, but then I'm also like, I got paid for the website and other things. And then there's another lady in church who saw what I did and said, hey, I need you to build me a website. And so like, God started giving me projects in graphics and in things to do. And I was like, oh, this is like interesting, because I never would have like, yeah, I can build websites. I built all of the websites that, not all, but most of the websites that my skincare company had done, I had designed them, because we had hired graphic designers to do it, and it either didn't come out right, or there's missing parts, or there's always something happening. And so sometimes you just learn how to do it for yourself, right? It's a skill that you learn. And I had learned this skill. And so like the last two or so websites we had in total, I think I built this like 5 different websites over the years, but more specifically the last 2, I had learned a lot more about how to really put it together. And now that skill is being transferred into another place where it was actually needed. And it was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I can do this. Like, I'm creative enough to like figure it out and to put it all together. And so in the question of like, God, what should I do? I never went back to work. Because I just got into the space with God where I'm like, I'm going to just depend on you for everything. I'm going to just trust you for everything. And again, like, I kept saying to myself, if I have to give 2 weeks notice and God could move me at a moment's notice, then I can't be there, because then it's not fair to them for me to leave and then come back and then leave again. And I just want to walk this out with God. Like, I really just want to stay in this place of prayer and being still and just letting him do what he needs me to do. And when I thought about going back to my other church, it had already shifted that I was over here doing work. And Miss Val was like calling me, hey, I'm just calling to check in you. And sometimes the people who check up on us, those are the people who get our attention, right? And so as she was checking on me and as I was doing stuff for the church, it really just made it seem like I had a lot of peace over being over here, over doing this work, over shifting my focus to right here. And when I just look back and I'm like, man, I'm so grateful for how it all worked out. Even the fact that I didn't leave yet, I'm just so grateful for it. One thing in my dream that I didn't mention is I had known it was time to leave because somebody in my dream had passed. Somebody I knew or I was close to had passed right before I left. They died right before I left. And anytime I heard somebody say, because people around me were dying, COVID and all this other stuff, and I was like, God, is it them? Is it now? And it's kind of morbid to think of, but like that was a defining moment in the dream because somebody I knew passed. And that was like, it was like the week after I left, right? And so I was like, okay, cool. And so I was like looking out for the little indicators that would indicate, okay, is now the time to leave? Is now the time to leave? Because I was no longer focused on a date. I was focused on a movement. What am I going to see that is going to cause me to leave, right? And so now we're in 2023. I really thought I was leaving before 2022. It did not happen. And there's some other things there that I had to like work out with God that I was just really hurt over. I spent Christmas by myself. My whole family was in Jamaica because I thought that God was bringing me to Jamaica. And although they were going to pay for my ticket and I would just pay them back, I knew that I had quit my job. And so I didn't want that. And even still, I was making, like I said, I was making like $500 at my job. And so for me to even afford the ticket to Jamaica, I would have had to work at least 4 months straight just to afford that plus pay my bills. And I'm like, I didn't want that. I'm like, if God's bringing me, he'll bring me. So I spent Christmas by myself. And I wasn't mad that I spent Christmas by myself. I was more annoyed because I'm like, I thought he was bringing me to Jamaica with them. And I'm like, again, I was like, God, you could have told me that I wasn't going to go. I would have been okay. And I'm like, why do we keep having this conversation of just let me know things and I'll be okay with it. But you don't let me know. You wait till it happens and then I'm upset. Like, this is for real how I'm talking to God. I'm like, you need to let me know. You need to just tell me what's up so I know how to adjust my expectations. And so anyways, now we're dealing with December where the year ended and I thought I was leaving, but I'm still in the country. But I still have belief that he's sending me. When I say I did not unpack my suitcase, okay? So I had packed up my suitcase officially to leave on the 28th of September. When I got back, I did not unpack it. I did not take anything out. I'm like, it's going to stay right there. So God knows that I'm serious, that I know he's moving me. If I unpack everything, then it's like I've given up on the promise. I am not unpacking my suitcase. And it stayed there packed. And I had maybe about 20 pieces of clothes, way more tops than I had bottoms. Like I had a very limited amount of clothes. I was rewearing, repeating everything. And I was like, well, this is just going to be, we're just going to wear these 5 pieces of clothes until God moves us. Because I wasn't taking nothing out my suitcase. So my suitcase is still packed. I'm thinking he's bringing me to Jamaica for December. He leaves me here. And now I'm upset. But again, I'm like, what am I going to do? Stop talking to God? Be mad at him? Again, I'm like, no, we're going to keep it pushing. We're going to forgive. We're going to readjust. And we're going to keep moving. And now comes February, and my brother dies. Hey, thank you so much for listening to the Lips and Language podcast. My name is Cola. I am so excited that you are here. If anything I said today resonated, then get in touch with me. I have an amazing mentorship program. It is for those who feel misunderstood, overwhelmed, going through grief. It is truly an amazing time. If you want more info, hit my website, lipsandlanguage.com. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can hit it up on the website or DM me. I have a free gift for you, and I would love to be in contact with you. Whatever you decide, just know that healing, it looks good on you. And I'm so excited that we get to do this journey together. Have a blessed day. And if nobody told you, I will. I love you. Enjoy your day, and we'll talk soon. Peace.